Okay, I think we're good.
So I guess it's 6 o'clock. Should we start the meeting?
Just
You're set for it?
checking. Yes, I'm just checking attendees to make sure there aren't any chairs over there, and I don't see anyone.
Yeah, I have a tough time seeing them. Yeah.
Well, I'll monitor it, and if I see anyone coming in who's a chairperson, I'll make sure to. Oh, there's Ed Stebbins. Hang on.
Okay.
Well, I'll continue to monitor it. If I see anyone, I'll promote them in.
All right. You've got the recording going and everything.
That's right.
We don't need, I guess we don't need to have any introduction. We have nobody in the public.
Well, we can just start with the roll call, and then I think John has.
So
is gonna
I'll call the meeting to order, the Committee of Chairpersons meeting. Roll call. You have that, Deb? Or should I go?
Why don't you go ahead and go through it, Jeff?
Let's see, I've got Dave Scott. I gotta, wait a minute.
So, yeah, so I see Dave Scott, who's the chair of the. Yep.
Dave Scott, Larry Dunn, Ed's Lisa. I got Ed Stebbins. Who else we have?
We also have
Lisa Locke.
Yep,
And
Sima.
Sima Evan. Right. We don't have anybody else calling in, right?
Not that I see.
Okay. So the first item on the order of business is approval of the minutes for October 16th, 2017. I'll make a motion to approve the meetings. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Does anyone have any corrections? Hearing none, we'll vote on approval of the minutes of October 16th, 2017. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
I'm going to abstain. This is Sima. I don't think I was at that meeting, or I'm not sure I've ever seen the minutes.
Well, you don't have to be at the meeting. You don't have to be at the meeting to approve.
No, that's true, but I haven't seen the minutes, so I have really little idea what they say. So I feel more comfortable abstaining.
Oh, okay. So we should have, what, 5 in favor and 1 abstention. The motion is carried. And we can move on to items of business, which is a mystification sanction. And I guess, is Ray, are you the one that will be presenting tonight?
Jeff could be on in the next 3 or 4.
Did you want to do something first, John, before we?
Yes, John Reiner, Director of Planning and Development Services. I did want to give just a very brief introduction. So the reason that we had asked to have this Committee of Chairs meeting tonight is to introduce the Mystic River Bluffs project to all the committees and to hear a presentation of a master plan for the redevelopment of the Mystic Education Center property. This is a vision for the property that is very preliminary. I also should say that here tonight from OPDS staff from Office of Planning and Development Services, myself, Deborah Jones, and Paige Bronk. We wanted to give a little overview and context for the committee before we hand the presentation over to the Rexpler Homes team of both Jeff Rexpler and Ray Kiernan. Before I begin, I want to be very clear. There are no applications for the redevelopment of the Mystic Education Center at this time. I can't stress this enough. We, the Office of Planning and Development Services, have not received any applications for a zone change or for anything moving this project forward. Today, the property is still owned by the state of Connecticut. This property is currently not on the tax roll and is paying no taxes to the town. The town took the lead on marketing this property from funding a few years back through a state brownfields. Ressler Homes was chosen as the preferred developer and has been negotiating with the state to eventually buy this property. Public meeting was held to unveil the master plan, and this project is now called Mystic River Bluffs and has a dedicated website. This property in its current state is a huge liability from a safety and environmental standpoint. It is degrading every day from a mold and building maintenance standpoint, and has become a hazard in that the buildings are constantly being broken into. The site is now highly monitored by the developers, and the Groton police have actually made numerous arrests out on the property. The Planning and Zoning Commission has been working on a zoning regulation amendment that will lay out a permitting path for the redevelopment of the Mystic Education Center. Last month, the PZC also walked the property to get a better understanding of the land, the existing buildings, and the surrounding neighborhood. And tonight, we just wanted to kind of give this committee a very preliminary review of the draft that is the master plan for the redevelopment, to help everyone kind of visualize what is actually happening out there. We as staff have had a lot of questions about what the proposed development is going to be. So we thought this would be a great opportunity to get that before the committee. Again, a zoning regulation amendment has not been, there's no application for it yet, and that's something that staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission are still working on together. Again, can't stress enough, no application from the developer, and all applications will be heard in the future at a public hearing, and they'll be all at public meetings. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Ray Kiernan, and he can begin the presentation on behalf of the development team.
Good evening. John, are you going to give me the ability to share the screen? Or can I share the screen?
I think
You
that
should be able to.
yeah.
Okay. So thank you, John, for the introduction and a little context for the members of the committee. We're here to introduce a vision for this property formerly known as the Mystic Ed Center. Jeff and I first looked at this property back in 2016 with Paige Bronk. And when we did look at the property and we walked through the buildings, we were left pondering what could be done with the Mystic Oral School building itself. We had initially thought that the building was a candidate for an adaptive reuse for multifamily housing. Once we went through that building and understood kind of, I'll say, the limitations of it, we began to think about the property in a larger context. The building, as it's currently configured, is not really suitable to redevelop into multifamily housing. If you look at here, an overview, you can see that it's a very narrow but long building. And inside the narrow parts of the building, there's large center hallways. So the rooms that are off the center hallways are small. Keep in mind that historically, this building was used as a school and a boarding facility for people that did not have any hearing. So all the rooms are very small. After looking at it, we were told that the town and DECD would be issuing an RFP, which they subsequently did in December of, let's see here, when was that? Anyway, fall of, I think it was 17. And we When that RFP came out, it had given us time to really look at the greater Groton area and engage a number of business leaders in the community, looking for how best this property could be integrated into the needs of the greater Groton marketplace. We spoke with folks at EB, at Pfizer, folks at Orsted, the US Navy, really to try and understand what they had for plans going forward. One of the things that we did learn, and we all know now, but at the time, you know, the General Dynamics had announced that they were going to be expanding production in the coming years. And at the time we were told, oh, they're going to grow the jobs by maybe 3,500. So we did a lot of homework out in the community to try and understand how this property could work. One of the things that we heard over and over and over again was mainly from the employers, the major employers, is that they had some difficulty recruiting folks, and they do a lot, these firms do a lot of recruiting on college campuses, both at the undergrad level and at the master's degree level, and Pfizer at the PhD and postgrad level. One of the things we heard was there was a lack of housing that matched what prospective employees wanted. That was number one. Number two, we heard that even when they hired folks, they ended up leaving after 24 months, 30 months, 35 months, because there wasn't a lot here for them. So those conversations, that research served kind of as a backdrop for the vision that ultimately was created. Jeff kind of woke up one night and said, you know what, that building, the oral school, could be a commercial center, and we could build apartments around it and create a symbiotic relationship between the two. So that was the genesis of the idea. We developed our response to the RFP. We brought on Fuss & O'Neill, a major engineering firm, well-known here in the Northeast. We brought on Kroski Architects. Kroski Architects has a lot of experience in adaptive reuse of historic buildings and historic preservation. That was important to us. And they have a lot of experience with multifamily. So between Fuss & O'Neill, Bill Kroski, we then put together our RFP, our response to the RFP. And what you're looking at here is on the screen right now is the master plan as it's currently configured. When we started out with a much kind of a different kind of layout. At the time, we have the access up here. This is Oral School Road going out to Cal Hill Road. And we thought we would, here is the Oral School building itself. And off to the left here is what's marked in an F, is where we initially were contemplating putting a parking garage. Over here to the right, marked D, is the Pratt building. We, as part of the kind of our process, we had conversations with some folks in the town, specifically Mark Berry and Park and Recs Department, because we had heard from folks that the Pratt building used to be used by the town and the pool was actually a huge draw. So that kind of helped to shape our vision a little bit too. The other thing that you'll notice when you look at our initial response is very little surface parking. So we've designed the site. Another kind of important element for us is being green. So we've designed the site so that parking is underneath the buildings. The buildings are built on podiums that are sunk into the ground. Some of them are, halfway in the ground, halfway out. And so we wanted to eliminate as much surface parking as possible and make the site as green as possible. So when we submitted our RFP and were ultimately selected as the preferred developer, we then began an extensive outreach program. So we, and that outreach program began in December of 2019. We met with the conservation groups. We met with RTM at the senior center. We met with the community. If you notice here, there's a lot of folks that live off on the west side of Cal Hill Road. So we met with we had an open meeting at the Northeast Academy School where we explained the vision as it was then and listened to the feedback from the community. We had Sunday brunches. We had several brunches with budding homeowners that were willing to host small meetings so that we could meet one-on-one with folks. We also had some one-on-one meetings with the budding landowners as they requested it. Unfortunately, that outreach, personal outreach kind of stopped when COVID hit and we hit the lockdown. Now, in February of 2020, we signed a developer's agreement with the town based on the vision at the time. We also entered into, and this is important, as John was mentioning, the buildings have been deteriorating actually rather rapidly. There were numerous leaks in the roofs of both the Oral School and the Pratt School building. And the state, unfortunately, wasn't in a position to maintain the buildings. So we entered into a purchase and sale agreement, plus we entered into a master lease agreement. And the reason we entered into that master lease agreement was so that we could go in, stabilize the buildings, and also secure the buildings. One of the things that was happening is people were breaking into the building and there was lots of vandalism occurring inside, both in the Pratt building and the Oral School building. We now have alarm systems in both of the buildings. And this past weekend, we actually now have cameras inside the buildings so that, and they're motion activated so that if people happen to break in, we're going to catch them on camera at the very least. I will say the Groton Police Department has been doing yeoman's work in protecting the facility. They've made now numerous arrests over the past, I'd say 45 days with folks that have been, at this point, they're having to go to extreme measures to break into the building because we've really tightly secured it, both of them. From this input, so I talked about the fact that we met with all these folks in the community. So from this input, we received lots of good information and and people, stating some concerns. And I'll kind of go in order of what the concerns were. First was traffic. Traffic seemed to be a significant concern, rightly so. You can see here, this is down here is Mystic Street. There's an intersection at the first light here between Cal Hill Road and Upper Cal Hill Road. And then there's the intersection up here. People were concerned at the time that this intersection between Oral School Road, Cal Hill Road, and Lampier Road was not aligned well. It's actually significantly misaligned. The traffic light it's a strange intersection, to put it mildly. So Jeff has purchased, you'll see these two properties in blue, the former Adams House and the guest house. It's actually two separate deeded parcels, so that intersection can be realigned. The other thing that we've subsequently done is, again, because of these concerns about traffic and not wanting traffic really, if possible, going up Cal Hill Road, is Jeff purchased the property here formerly known as the Fertileski property. It's about 17 acres. And what that does is it provides a bridge between the Oral School property and Cow Hill Road and the first intersection. We are also under contract right now to purchase this. There's a little property here it's 230 Cow Hill Road. And we're under contract to purchase that, hopefully closing actually very shortly. The reason that Jeff did that is to provide direct access coming off of the highway, not going past this intersection into the Oral School or Mystic River Bluffs, as we're now calling property. And one of the things that did is give us the ability to create a road circulation path to provide direct access to the Pratt Building. The Pratt Building, I'll spend a little time talking about that right now. As part of our initial proposal, we have said that utilizing the tools that the town and state offered, that we would renovate that building and then lease it back to the town. I see Jeff is here. Jeff, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm sorry I'm late. It's Jeff Respler. I got caught in traffic and I had internet problems and you name it, of course, Murphy's Law. And I just want to say hi and thank you so much for seeing us tonight. I don't know what you're up to, Ray, but you're doing very well. So I don't know. So you might want to continue or tell me what you're up to and I could take over.
Yeah, so I'm right now talking about the input that we got from the community and how that informed where we are today. So the fact that traffic was an issue. I have yet to talk about the fact that they wanted direct access being via bike lanes and walking paths. It turns out that a lot of people from this neighborhood over here, they walk through or bike through or run through this property on a daily or on a weekly basis, and they wanted good, safe access. So let's see here. So I'm going to move down so here's the master site plan as it now is configured. And I'm going to move to one other slide here. So to look at the traffic. So you can see the interstate here. This is the Mystic River over here. When you come off the interstate, whether it's here or here, people will go north on Cow Hill Road, and the new road will come right here, right off of Cow Hill, and there'll be a ring road that will provide direct access to a parking garage that's right here. One of the things that we saw once we understood the topography of the site was we had the challenge of people having access to the Pratt Building without having to walk too far. Formerly, we had the parking garage over here, and it was 4 stories sticking out of the ground. With this location here, because of the topography, we can build the parking garage into the hillside and reduce its exposure to off-site so that people won't, you'd have to really look for it to see it. And people can exit the parking garage and go right to the Pratt Building. With the town now looking at how they're going to utilize the Pratt Building, it's going to be a significant community asset. The pool, it sounds like it'll be used a lot. The gym facilities sounds like they'll be used a lot, and whatever else the town decides to use the building for, we'll have parking for it, easily accessible, both from a walking point of view from the garage, but also from a vehicular standpoint. So the ring road, we designed that such so that we could keep traffic, vehicular traffic, out of the center of the little village. So you'll notice in this, we have some big green spaces. So where my cursor is right now is a big community green, like a town green. The town green, the purpose of the town green is obviously to have some open space. but also to serve as a venue for any kinds of events, whether it be farmers markets, whether it be an art show, craft show, you name it. You know, we have a space, outdoor space, nice, to support those kinds of uses and to support the local community. Let's see here. One of the things that is important to recognize, you'll notice down here, there's no development. We, in our agreement with the state, have said that there's 37 acres here, that will be turned over to DEEP to be preserved perpetually for open space. We will have a easement through that for a walking path down to River Road to provide access to the boat launch. The boat launch and some of this area right here, we, in our agreement with the state, have said that we'll upgrade that so that there's easy access, parking, maybe a small dock. That's all to be worked out with the state. But this land here, this 37 acres, will be perpetually preserved. The nice thing about this 37 acres is that it connects up to a plot of land, additional land up here owned by the state and land up here owned by the town. So there's a lot. This will provide direct hiking trails to those other parcels. The other thing that was a concern that was mentioned was visibility from off-site for the apartment buildings, and more specifically from Boulder Court. So one of the things we did was we moved, there's a building here. We moved that back from the property line about 200 feet so that the folks on lower Boulder Court can't see it. And there is, however, one house right up here on the corner, which will have to do some vegetative screen with trees and or fencing, because at certain times of the year, if that wasn't there, they could see part of the building. Let's see here, what else? On the Fertileski property, one of the other things that we heard very clearly from the major employers is the lack of housing for executives that move in for 1, 2, or 3 years. General Dynamics rotates people in, Pfizer rotates people in, and they have a difficult time finding housing for the short term, for that 1 or 2 year period. And in fact, we were told that EB sends those executives over to Old Saybrook and up towards Hartford to find suitable housing, rental housing. So the Fertileski property here is designed with townhomes, 3-bedroom townhomes that will serve, be luxury that executives would be used to. So let's see here. I'm just going through my notes, if you don't mind. So this whole, one of the, as I mentioned, there was an overreaching vision for this property. And part of that overreaching vision, which I think is important for people to understand, is that the firms that are looking to grow their employment base are hiring Gen Zs and millennials. They're a younger demographic. They're a demographic that are forming families much later in life than our generation did, or the generation after me did. So there's some unique characteristics associated with these generations. They work hard, but they also play hard. And this is community that we're building here and we're looking to create is designed as a live, work, play community. Whether they work on site in the Oral School building, we anticipate having a restaurant, coffee house, a bar, market, maybe a small pharmacy outpost, a UPS store, and the balance of the space on the second and third floors being office space, high-tech space, and also importantly, co-working space. You know, today, and especially in the last year, with folks working remotely, co-working space has become something of high demand. People come in to work, you know, on a project. They may be living here for a year. They may be a subcontractor working for EB or for Orsted or Pfizer, or even the submarine base. And they need a spot where they can meet with their clients and whatnot. The co-working space is designed to fill that need. And we anticipate, you know, that'll be a significant portion of the office space in this building. With co-working space, the facility provides the printers, the telephones, any of the services that they may need, answering service. So that's how that works. These workers, when they come home from work, whether they're leaving the oral school building or coming back from Pfizer or EB, they come home, they want to relax, they'll visit the bar maybe, have a, you know, meet with their friends, then go to the Pratt building, work out, or walk down to the riverfront, take their kayak or canoe on the river, windsurfer or whatever it is, and spend the evening doing some water recreation. Obviously, the Pratt building will, you know, if the town moves forward with this, will be providing swimming facilities, workout facilities, basketball facilities. So all of which will be open to all of Groton's residents, not only residents on this particular location, but the whole town of Groton. So as the plans continue, you know, this is a work in progress. I think John really kind of was trying to drive that home. And as this moves forward, we'll continue to listen to the input of the community. And as we are able, incorporate those inputs into this master plan as it moves forward. With that, Jeff, do you have anything you want to add?
So yeah, Ray, first of all, if you can go to the master site plan screen, you're on, yeah, and I don't know if you're able to enlarge that, but the concept of the entire development is that there should be a symbiotic relationship and make the oral school a very useful part of this entire project, where the oral school will be the heart of the entire community. It's the Main Street USA, basically, of the village, and everything will spawn out from that. In other words, inside there will be, you know, in this area, a restaurant, bar, outdoor cafe area. People coming home from, you know, EB, Pfizer, or any of the employers in the neighborhood. If you notice what happens in Hartford, I know what happens in New York City, they all like to come down to the main levels and socialize after work for an hour and a half. It's designed for that. After that, they want to go work out. And they go to the Equinox or different places in the city. Here, they would be jumping into the Pratt building or going down to the water, as Ray said, and jumping into the canoe. After that, they would come back in. They could either have dinner at the restaurant, or they can walk down the trail to River Road and walk or bike 1 mile to the center of Mystic, Connecticut, to the town, and they can have dinner over there. So what we're offering here is a life. It's a lifestyle. They're not coming home to just an apartment at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and you know, that's the end of the day. Because that's one of the major concerns and complaints from some of the employers in the neighborhood, is that there's no nightlife for their employees, and therefore they're having a very tough time retaining them. And what we're trying to design here is a live, work, play environment, so they have a lot of activity and life in the development, where the building itself will do the entertainment. They would be living in the homes. The Pratt building and the water and the Mystic itself, downtown Mystic, will give all the different entertainment venues that they need. And inside the oral school is also will be, you know, like an organic market, a 5,000 square foot market. They come home, They might need bread. They might need, some salad. They might need milk. That's what it's designed for. It's not designed to be a supermarket where they would do their weekly shopping, but for their staple items that they need daily. Inside there would be like an outdoor cafe, coffee shop. So they can grab a coffee in the morning, or if they're in the offices upstairs, come down, grab a coffee, or go to the restaurant. It's all made to intertwine and be a symbiotic relationship with each other. There'll be a UPS store on the main level for packages and deliveries, et cetera. The outdoor cafe in the evenings might have some, there's a stage over here. It's in between the buildings. So the sound is a little bit muffled, but it's a nice little area over there inside the building, between the buildings, that would have a little bit of a stage, and there could be like a country music night, jazz night, even blues or classic rock, or karaoke or anything like that, that would bring life to the neighborhood. Ray spoke about the Village Green that's going to have different types of events that are going to go on over there. As a matter of fact, the town has asked us, and some of the different chamber associations in the town have asked us if they can use that area as well for different events. And yeah, I mean, that's what we want it for. We want this area to be alive and be a go-to destination, I guess, for millennials and Gen Zers and anyone that wants to have more of a life after work instead of just going back to their apartment. Ray spoke about the ring road, so you could see it a little bit over here. This is the actual road now that comes in from E and also comes in from the top, but I'm concentrating on the southern one because that comes right off the exit. And then it goes right through, follow that ring road. It will take you right to the parking garage. The intention of that is so that the parking garage is now situated in the area that's right next to the oral school in case they want to go to the restaurants, take advantage of some of the facilities inside the oral school, or walk right across the street and go into the Pratt building. So there's no heavy traffic moving through the neighborhood where there could be a safety concern of people crossing the street, someone getting hit. It's all delegated to the ring road that's around the entire neighborhood. I think Ray spoke about, we also developed on these roads biking paths, and we developed walking a running path on this. And these running paths will interconnect into that easement going down into River Road. So then they can jog down to River Road and jog down to Mystic. So we're trying to interconnect our project to the neighborhood itself, where people can jog off from, to the developments, the Highlands that are across the street, and they can jog into the neighborhood. There was some concern from RTM that they used this area as a jogging path before. They'll be able to continue to use it as a jogging path. Safer, as a matter of fact, now, because they won't be jogging on the roads. They'll be jogging onto dedicated jogging paths. Ray spoke about our vision for the second and the third floors. And he mentioned how important that was, so I'm not going to, but that's like huge right now. Just to understand it, if Pfizer, would need some collaborative space where 3 or 4 different engineering firms can get together in one area and actually work side by side, desk by desk, to accomplish some of the goals that are needed on these complicated submarines. There'll be WeWork space for people in the village or others that come in that need individual office space with conference rooms. There seems to be a huge need for that right now, especially post-COVID, where people are more delegated now to work away from office settings. Of course, there'll be also private office space up there, and all that space, again, will integrate into the first floor and integrate into the oral school itself. Our intention here is to bring this school back to life and have it be a venue to feed out to the entire community. Ray's touched upon, and you can circle it again, the executive housing that we developed on the new piece of property that we bought. It's more low rise, it's more suburban, and the intention there is for executives. Right now, there's really no decent place for executives to have, modern housing and still be next to this community. So we developed that area for that. So we tried to handle all different facets of of the needs of the current employers of the neighborhood. You know, the biggest complaint, I guess, of the town, that a lot of the employment, you know, there's one thing when I spoke to the town the first time, they mentioned that their biggest problem is not labor. They have all the labor. Their problem is retaining the labor and keeping the money in Mystic and in Groton. This is designed to have the money stay here and be spent in the town instead of being spent in, you know, other towns, all the way down to Old Saybrook. They said people are even traveling in from Hartford because they want that type of life that they can't get around here right now. I think we touched upon the conservation, right, Ray?
Yeah, we did.
And we spoke about how we tried our best. Listen, you know, there are some people that want to turn this entire thing into a park, you know, so I mean, we couldn't address their concerns, but a lot of the people that, and the concerns that they had between traffic, jogging trails, intersections, we've done preliminary work on the sewer. Of course, this project won't get approved if it doesn't have proper sewer. Safety, we spoke about with these ring roads. Ray can touch upon the school systems. It's not going to be a major impact. There will be an impact, but not a major. And also the ability here to set up parking under structure so that we can keep the development as green as possible.
Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit about the economic impact of this. Jeff just mentioned, this is, you know, and I mentioned earlier, this is a lot about having the jobs that are in Groton and the people that are filling those jobs actually living in Groton. Right now, it's our understanding that 75+% of the people that work at EB, they drive out of town at the end of their shift. What we'd like to have happen is a significant portion of those, as they begin to ramp up hiring. EB has expressly told us that at the end of 2021, as they finish the new building for the Columbia class, they're going to have a major hiring spurt through the end of 2022, and they'll be bringing on an additional 5,000 employees. So they're growing the number of employees. Back in November, October of last year, the president of EB publicly stated that they need to hire over the next 10 years, 18,000 new employees. A significant portion of those are replacements, but a significant portion are also brand new jobs. And this project is designed to appeal to the workers that EB, Pfizer, Orsted, submarine base are looking to hire. And so when you look at the economic impact that this project can have, I happen to be a retired professor of real estate and urban economics, so I know a little bit about this. I did a pretty comprehensive study back when we did the RFP to make sure that this could work. Though with this current master plan of development as the vision is now, it's about $110 million in payroll that will be retained in Groton. You know, a significant portion of that is income that will be spent on necessities and income that will be spent on entertainment, on discretionary items. It will have a major impact on retail sales in Groton and in the surrounding communities. One of the questions that people have had, and we looked at this from the very beginning, and I'm actually looking at it again, but people have been concerned, well, what's going to be the impact on the school system? Well, as I mentioned at the front end, Gen Zs and millennials are forming households much later than we did. There will be an impact. However, it's not going to be substantial. A few weeks ago, I went and hired a firm to look at what was happening at Harbor Heights. Harbor Heights is a new property that came online in Stonington last year, kind of in the springtime. It's now, by the way, 100% occupied. They have right as of 2 weeks ago, they only had 3 vacancies. They have 6 school-age children and 7 toddlers. The next nearest property that we would consider a competitor is Soundview over in East Line. They have 9 school-age children and 14 toddlers. And Saybrook Station, further away, 30 minutes plus, over in Old Saybrook, they have 2 vacancies, 7 school-age children, 4 toddlers. You know, we're thinking that this is going to have probably about 45 students that would attend the schools in Groton. I think the other important factor here is, you know, Jeff talked about integrating this with, you know, the symbiotic relationship inside the development, but this is also designed to be a symbiotic relationship with the southeast region of Connecticut. So we've had conversations. People are wondering, what about mass transit? Is that a possibility? Well, EB has said, you know, we've had conversations with EB regarding that specifically. EB has said, if we have a number of employees there, we're going to run a shuttle back and forth. We've had conversations with the Southeast Region Transit District. There's, you know, they've said something very similar. If there's demand, we'll run buses up and back and around the town of Groton or the local area. One of the other kind of important things to consider that we've been considering is we happen to be living in a time where transportation is changing. You know, millennials and Gen Zs are not as married to automobiles as we were and are. They're comfortable using Uber or Lyft or, you know, for their daily needs, or public transportation for the daily needs. But on the weekends, they may want to rent a car. And one of the things we're looking at with the parking garage is having a portion of it dedicated to electric vehicles. Electric vehicle ownership is going to increase over time, and we need to be accommodating that. So that's an important component. And I'll speak briefly about demand. People keep wondering, where are all these folks going to come from? They're going to come from the new jobs, and we can see it today. If you go out and look and try and find a place to live in Groton today, it is really tough. We keep hearing that time and again. And it's reflected in the rents. Over the last 6 months, the rents at these new properties have increased dramatically, you know, 15 to 20%. A one bedroom apartment in Stonington in Harbor Heights right now, 653 square feet. They're asking $2,281. A 2-bedroom, 1,300 square foot, they're between $2,900 and $3,700 for the 2 vacant units they have. Depends on the views. So the marketplace is speaking really loudly that there's demand for quality apartments. This region happens to have around 17,000 plus multifamily units. So we're going to be adding, obviously, inventory to that, but it's new inventory. It's the product type that millennials and Gen Zs want and need and demand. And I'm confident that you know, the demand will be there. And this property, given its location, given its the topography, given its access to I-95, is ideally suited for multifamily and generating the maximum economic benefit for the community. With that, I guess we'll open it up to questions. David, you need to turn your mic on.
Yeah, just about everybody is muted right now, so just make sure you unmute. And one other item that I want to say is tonight, we don't expect anything from the committee other than if you have questions, if you want to bring those up. There's no action required of anybody tonight. That's for informational purposes. And many of the commissions in town will have the opportunity to review the plans for this project based on their statutory authorities. want to kind of remind everyone of that.
Naima?
Oh, is David, are you trying to speak? Is anyone else trying to speak? I don't want to jump ahead. No? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay,
Emma.
I just want to thank the developers. That was a great presentation, and thank you for that. But I do have a bunch of questions, and they unfortunately may not be organized that well. So I apologize in advance. Some of these are probably going to be directed more towards Mr. Reiner. Because, and just to give you a sense, I'm the moderator of the RTM. So we tend to focus on things like money and taxes and revenue. So that's where most of my questions are going to be aimed. First of all, John said that this property doesn't generate any taxes. And I was just curious because as state property, there is payment in lieu of taxes. And the town, I believe last time I looked, received about $1 million or so from the town. Is this property, from the state rather, of Connecticut, is this property not part of that pilot payment?
So today, this property pays approximately $25,000 in pilot payments to the.
Okay, so thank you. I think that should be, you should state that instead of it's not paying anything, which is what you did say. And then I know that tax increment financing has been is an issue, and I know that there's been maybe no formal discussions, let me put it that way. I don't know what's been said informally. And I understand that there's a process, and this is very early on in that process. But related to that, I am really interested in the cost of services that will be generated by a project of this magnitude. The schools, I would just say there was no number given for those executive townhouses, but with 3 bedrooms, they're likely to generate students in our school system. So it would be good to know how many of those there are. And it would be good to get a firmer estimate of the impacts on our school system, more than just it won't be significant. Just a bunch of questions. Will trash and recyclables be handled by private contractors, or will, the fire district be responsible? Numbers I've heard, although not tonight, are that this is going to represent about 931 new families, in addition to many new businesses. Have the fire and police departments and Mystic River Ambulance weighed in on their ability to service this development? Do they currently have excess capacity and facilities? Is the water and sewer system adequate? Has Aquarian and the Sewer Authority weighed in on what upgrades are anticipated? Will the water tower at Fieldcrest service Mystic Bluffs for water and fire protection? And really related to this, I think it's really important to know what is the estimated additional costs for Groton taxpayers for these additional services that that are going to be needed by, a substantial number of units, which is probably going to translate, I would think, roughly into at least, 3,000 additional people living in Groton. So I really am hoping before this moves forward too far that a really adequate cost of service analysis will be completed, so that we can figure the answers to kind of some of these issues. And I suggest, although, whenever you do a kind of analysis like this, it might be useful to compare it to the cost of services if this property were a park and there were no units in place here. Most studies, showing open space do have lower cost of services than residential development. I'll just put it that way. So I did also wonder about the rentals, which you didn't mention, but I had heard that the units would be renting in excess of $2,000 for, single bedroom. And I would just note that
No, what we're saying is because there's such demand in the market right now, the current rents that are being charged are we're going to be in a more reasonable area to allow, not to give the economic benefit to the renters. We're going to be in the area of $1,500, and don't be to it, but right around there for 1 bedrooms. We're going to be in the area of around $2,200 to $2,400 for 2 bedrooms.
Okay, thank you. So that clarifies that, because I was under the assumption, I think from Mr. Reiner at a past, maybe a presentation to the RTM last month, that it was going to be in excess of 2,000. And I would just note that my family does own several houses in this area and in other towns. And, none of our rents are like in excess of like, they're all around $1,000, and those are for single family homes. Some of them are apartments, but I don't know what's happening in Stonington at the units that you just mentioned, Soundview, if that was it. That does seem a little higher. And related to that is, if you're drawing from EB and, Pfizer perhaps can afford this, but I'm not sure that the bulk of EB jobs are in a position to pay, substantial parts of their salary towards lodging, and going beyond, I would suggest maybe 1,500 would be a maximum, but to really gauge that analysis on the salaries, not the high end, because the high end of the salaries may prefer to have their own home, but the salary of folks who are working there, I don't think, if you're looking at a quarter of your salary being kind of the maximum or optimal amount you want to pay in any one month, if you're asking 2,000, that would be about $96,000 salary, which is, I would think, substantially higher than a lot of folks are, welders and painters and other folks at EB are making. So I would, hope that there would be a really kind of a drill down analysis of what your kind of the folks, the consumers of this residential development will actually be able to pay, not necessarily willing. So anyway, that's just a few. I just want to mention one other thing that one of my RTM colleagues had mentioned, which is, it's great. I think we're all excited in this community that EB is increasing its hiring, but I think we are all in this community aware that EB can just as easily start cutting back on its hiring and actually laying people off. And this has happened many times in the past. And so that's the other side of that question, is when demand, kind of slows, what's going to happen to, a development that's pretty sizable. So I just want to put that out there when we're thinking about demand for this kind of housing. Anyway, thank you. I was very impressed, but I really am looking forward to a little bit more of the analysis of the costs of this. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any comments?
Yes, I have a comment. As I remember from being there, the area around just adjacent to the pool is very wet. And I'm curious about the pond you're showing and what looks to me like a stream going by the small building next to the pool. I'm not sure that's a stream. I'll have to get a better map than this, but I'm concerned that you're crowding all this material. And I also want to know if that wetland area is a vernal pool. Because if it is, you're going to need to stay a lot further back from it.
Yeah. Jeff, do you want to tackle that?
So this area, well,
I'll put my cursor here.
that building right now was used as a dump by the state. And what we're trying to do is cap the dump over there to prevent any more spread of any kind of leakage from that area. Therefore, that's why we put that, we capped it and we put that building above it in order to prevent that. The pond itself is existing, that's there right now. And, so we're just emulating that and taking advantage. And we're going to build, maybe we'll even have some swings and stuff that are going to be around the pond area.
You didn't answer my question though.
Oh,
I want to know if the pond is a vernal pool, which you'll need to have somebody ascertain, and if that part of the plan that goes by the dump there is that a stream or is it not a stream? I'll have to get a better map, I think. But if it is, I want to have a look at it.
It's like a two season or 3 season stream.
Yeah, okay.
It's like
And
a-
what
There
kind-
were 2 dumps on the property located in that general area. There's an old dump and a newer one.
Yeah, I've been out there many times, but I want to know what's in the ground. If you're going to cap something, I want to know what's already leaching in at the ground underneath that.
Correct. And you will have that, of course. The engineers are aware of that area. I think we've done some, what's it called?
S-bores.
Yeah, we've actually dug out some of that area. They've taken samples of the area. So I'm just not in a position right now to discuss because I'm not the expert, but we can bring that. I assume, David, you're with inland wetlands or?
Yes, I'm the chairman of wetlands.
Oh, great. So we actually want to also, bring this project and show it to your commission as well.
All right, I'll get Deb to give me
That's the site
a more
plan.
detailed map.
Correct.
All right, thank you. I think it's supper time here, so I'm going to have to sign off. Have a good evening.
Thank
Have a
you.
good
Dave.
night.
Yeah, thank you.
If I can indulge everyone and just explain, tonight, my niece is getting married, so the reception is actually starting right now. So if it's okay with you, I'm gonna leave Ray on with everyone in case they have additional questions. And I hope you'll excuse me.
All right.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah,
I see Larry Dunn has his hand up also.
Larry?
Yep, thanks. Larry Dunn on the Conservation Commission. So Ray is, I guess I'll reinforce some of your observations with the younger, I guess, potential renters. They do tend to be more conservation minded. And the proximity and the use of open space would be viewed as an asset, which then leads to one about how one manages trails and the access you had to the dock site. So as this kind of progresses, be very interested to see how that looks and to provide some level of participation, certainly with Parks and Recs, to see how that works out. But as I said, that then becomes a benefit and attraction, as well as making that open to the community to access that open space property as well. Similar to what what was said earlier, as we go through this is all the work to ensure that the property is protected during the development phase and after. So I'll leave that for the future. I would offer, and maybe Ray, you could forward through the planning staff your email, is that we tend to support the town with an economic analysis that Sima had related to, from our perspective, on the pros and the cons and the comparisons of different types of development. I will say generically, as you probably know, that the cost to the town is cheaper with higher density developments than it is for single family homes. So this is on the, let me call it the better end of the scale in terms of the cost benefit to the town. So I'd like to kind of run it through our model. And if you could reach out and provide your email, that way I can talk to you more about that later.
Sure.
So other than that, I mean, there's things to be done. Appreciate the 37 acres of open space and conservation. So we'll look forward to seeing how this plan develops further down the road.
Paige Bronk. Go ahead, Paige.
Anyone else?
Paige.
Okay, how about now?
Yeah, you're there.
Just a couple comments. My involvement was fairly large on the front end of this effort. And This is an effort to preserve environmentally sensitive properties, and adaptive reuse of existing properties, structures is the best way to actually address the protection and also economic development needs within a community. It's a large piece of property. Many people have been out there. As Ray had mentioned earlier, the protection of the environmentally sensitive areas will occur while we're trying to get appropriate density within basically the area that's already compromised by development. There is environmental contamination on the site, which will only be remediated through redevelopment. Also, we knew on the front end that one of the largest concerns was going to be circulation, access to the property, not just for the property, but to protect the adjacent neighborhoods. And that really is critical. And in order to do that, acquisition of additional property was needed. The last point I wanted to bring up is in terms of fiscal impact, we have such a benefit in Groton. Many communities have to create jobs. We are an attractor to workers, but the downside is the majority of them leave every day. And in terms of one of the most significant strategies for economic development will be to capture those who come here every day. They already are on our roads. They drive in every single day and they leave every day. That means that their salaries are spent elsewhere. In terms of fiscal impact, some of the largest contributors to our tax base are multifamily developments within town. And this will be no different. So we can gain benefit with our tax base, also our residential base, and try to protect significant open space with developments such as this. So I just wanted to put that out there. And I think it's been said all along, but every single board and commission will be, they'll be able to ask their questions. They'll be able to review the information provided by the developer. All the questions mentioned to date and more will be addressed through the process. But we have a long way to go on this. And I think that it's still going to morph and probably evolve significantly as it advances. I just wanted to throw that out there. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions, comments?
I had a few more. I'll just ask until someone else needs to ask some, but I was curious about the co-working spaces. Are they going to be leased? Are they going to be available publicly or just for tenants? Are they going to generate additional parking needs or additional services? I was curious about that. If anyone can kind of speak to that component. And I also had a question about the riverfront access. I've used that riverfront access to put in my kayak and would just suggest that the parking is super limited and inadequate at this point. So I was just wondering how that would be improved.
Okay, I can answer that. The co-working space would be available to anybody. It's available to anybody. In all likelihood, a significant portion of the use will be from the tenants, the people that live on site and or have offices on site. So I don't know if that addresses your question or not, but it is definitely open to the larger public, and we can see it being a heavily utilized portion of the property.
Is it going to be rented? I was just curious, are you leasing that space?
Yeah, people pay for that space, whether they sign up for a week, a month, or they can do it by hour. There's lots of different ways that companies run that. There'll be a firm that gets hired that's their, there's a number of companies that do that. WeWork is one, Regen is another. There's a number of them out there today that do that. That's their whole business. They know how to do it. They do it well. And, they lease the space from us and then operate it themselves as a business. So people pay for it as they use it, however they choose to, for whatever time frame they want to use it. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. As far as the waterfront is concerned, as part of our agreement, our purchase and sale agreement with the state, we have a broad understanding of that we will, improve the parking and the river access. How that looks will obviously we want to upgrade it pretty significantly because as you rightly pointed out, parking is haphazard there. Even cars trucks trying to back trailers down that rocky path into the water is treacherous at best. So we'll be working with Deep to craft those plans, and I'm sure the public at large will have have say in that. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. It
Okay.
does.
Thank you.
So one item I wanted to bring up on tonight's agenda, there wasn't a spot for public comment or public questions. I do see a hand up from the general public. I think it was a Conservation Commission member. If people do have questions, please feel free to email either myself, Paige, Deb Jones, or if there's staff that works with your board or commission. If you have questions that you have about the project, please reach out to the staff that support your commission and email them. We can get that information off to the developer if we don't have some of that information. And again, a lot of great questions were brought up tonight. Sima, I thank you very much for bringing up all those points. A lot of those are items that will be fleshed out as we continue to move forward through the zoning as well, and many of them probably more through the master plan and then through site planning processes, but all very good and important things that I think that the developers need to be aware of and that we've been working on to address many of those very concerns.
I do have one other point to make, only because if there are participants watching, they're interested in this. If you notice down here, Oral School Road actually continues past the school and down below. And we have agreed and recommended to the town that that road be limited access so that folks are not accessing the property via Lower Oral School Road. That there's be some kind of automatic gate put in for emergency vehicle access so that traffic does not flow down Oral School but goes out the new road. I just want to make sure people understand that. We really, I didn't address that earlier.
Ray, isn't there also a project webpage where people can go and send or ask questions of you that you might want to mention for tonight also?
Yes, if people were to do just a quick Google search on Mystic River Bluffs, they would find the homepage for this particular development. You can send in inquiries or questions there, and we'll get back to you very quickly. During the COVID situation, we weren't aware that we weren't receiving the questions. Somebody mentioned, and we fixed that problem, and now we're getting the questions and responding very rapidly.
Ray, you said you wanted this to be a green development, and I was curious if you had considered the installation of, say, solar panels on the rooftops, or the use of pervious pavers for the sidewalks, or anything beyond just putting the cars underneath the houses.
The answer is yes, and yes, and yes. All the above and more, actually. There's some other ideas that we're working with to make the project extremely energy efficient. We have some challenges specifically with the Pratt building because the pool is heated there. It takes a lot of energy to do that. And we're looking at some technologies that are available today that will allow us to, number one, heat the pool and provide additional power to the development. So there's a number of different things we're looking at. Jeff and I both have significant experience building green buildings and extremely energy efficient buildings.
Thank you. That's good to know.
Yeah, using passive solar, using wind turbine. We're not going to have wind turbines on this site, but I mean, I've built with wind turbines, you know, contemporary wind turbines. So, you know, it's a strong interest of ours.
So are there any other questions? I guess if we have none, did the staff have any additional comments?
Just want to thank everybody for their time tonight. Again, if anybody has any questions, please forward them to myself, to Deb, to Paige, or, you know, staff of your boards or commissions. And as this project progresses, this will be coming before not only the Planning and Zoning Commission, but the Conservation Commission and the Wetlands. And I'm sure at some point in time, we'll end up coming back to the Committee of Chairs once this gets a little further along and fleshes out some more.
And I'll also say thank you. I know your time is precious, and you know, Jeff and I both appreciate your willingness to hear the first iteration of this since we put together the RFP. And you know, if feel free to contact John and get my direct email if you guys want to talk directly with us. I'm happy to do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ray, I did though have one item to, for you. Is there's been discussion over multi-use in the project. Has any thoughts been given into how much of that you expect to do and how widespread it would be throughout the complex?
I missed the first part of your question. Multi-use?
Multi-use for, say, other businesses moving in, maybe on the first floor of some of these buildings for commercial.
Yeah, we have some ideas about the kinds of businesses that we're looking to attract specifically for the first floor, mainly the service businesses. So, and we're very open. So, but we definitely want to have the restaurant, coffee shop, a market, a bar, you know, nightclub, maybe a microbrewery. We have an interest from a microbrewery in for a specific space. Pharmacy, UPS store, maybe a cleaners, you know, an outlet for a dry cleaner, you know, picking up and you know, delivering dry cleaning.
But if you're trying to attract nightlife or other types of life, I mean, you'll probably want to have people from the public come to this area just for that purpose.
Correct.
Like you can't just, one restaurant is not going to attract or appease the people that want nightlife. You got to have more than one.
Yeah, well, so to answer your question, they're actually, when you look at the building, specifically the old cafeteria. So we see one restaurant on that floor. We see another one down below. There's there's actually an old theater in the building that we see being the coffee shop. So there's the building, although it is, you know, tough to reconfigure, there are spaces that can accommodate different larger uses, and we're happy to accommodate those. You know, you know, obviously Mystic and Stonington, which are very nearby, have lots of restaurants, and I don't think we don't want to have too many on this particular location. We have to be careful. You know, we want something that works not only for this project, but also this project with the rest of the community. Everybody needs to work together. Everything needs to work together. And I don't want to be, frankly, I don't think we want to be kind of, to use a term, poaching restaurants from other areas of town and have them move here. So we do have, however, just to be really clear, there's there's owners that own multiple restaurants, and they've expressed interest in putting a location here,
Mhm.
area. So, we've been approached by a number of the owners now that they know about the project, and they want to put a facility in here.
Yes, but if you look at the green around that, you have more opportunities to put other commercial activity around the green. So you have not just on one side, but you ought to have all four sides, or at least two sides. with
Yeah.
activities. Hmm?
Well, we
Okay.
have here and here. And actually, the way this is laid out is you can't see it in this drawing because we can't blow it up, but there's actually parking, diagonal parking here for people to access the market quickly.
Mhm.
But in any event, we can take that under consideration. This is a draft at this point, and we're
Okay.
looking for input from the community, and we'll take that input and as we can incorporate it into the master plan.
No, it's just one of my concerns is what does it look like in 30 or 40 or 50 years from now?
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
want to have it all just run down, deteriorating.
Correct.
Hmm?
No, I agree.
You want it to be successful,
Yeah.
in the future for
Mhm.
a long term.
Mhm.
That's what I'd be concerned with it. We can maintain it because it is a huge development.
Mhm.
It completely changed the area.
Mm.
And
One other demographic that we didn't expect this, but we are seeing and hearing from empty nesters. And we do see a significant portion now of the people that live here. When I say significant, maybe 20, 25% being empty nesters.
Mhm.
And that no longer want to own a home. They want a quality lifestyle, and they want a home base in Connecticut. And they probably are, what we're hearing is that they would go somewhere during the winter and be back up here during the summer, spring, summer, and fall.
Mhm.
So, and frankly, we're designing some of the buildings to accommodate those kinds of users.
Yes. All right. If there are no other questions or comments, then I'll make a motion for adjournment. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All right, so we'll adjourn the meeting. At what? 7:23. Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate
Everyone.
your time.
Good night.
All right.